Hello. Hi, everybody. Just waiting a minute to let some folks come in to join me here. We'll give it a couple minutes. Well, not minutes. We'll give it a few seconds. Good to see some folks joining as you're coming in. Do let me know. Hey, Michael, good to see you. Let me know where you're coming from as we gather today on this Wednesday at noon on the East Coast. And I'm a little bundled up because it's like lovely weather. It's your weekly weather report from DC. It's lovely weather this week, but it's just gotten chilly in the house. And so I realized I was cold. So I went and I got myself a wrap. Anyway, it's great to see some folks coming to be with me today. And no matter when you step in to join me, whether it's live on this Wednesday or later today or in the days to come, I want to welcome all of you into the Purple Parlor. My name is Ginger Gaines Sorelli. I'm the senior pastor at Foundry United Methodist Church in Washington, D.C. And welcome to my home here in the city. It is great to welcome you to this time of unscripted ponderings on things in my heart and mind. And today, here's what I'm thinking about. This morning, I feel like I'm beginning to kind of ooze back into old patterns a little bit, certainly not full on, but old patterns from pre-pandemic patterns, I should say. I got up early, like intentionally, and went out of my house to exercise, which is a new thing this week. Kind of back into that, all masked and distanced and all of that, but still doing that rhythm. And I came back, but in the wee hours this morning, had my devotion time here in this space. And sometimes things just come into my mind, things that I've read, things, sometimes it's a line of poetry or scripture or whatever, sometimes things just pop up. And the thing that came to my mind this morning is one of the entries in the Celtic Daily Prayer, book 2, the daily devotions or daily reflections, I think they call them, as part of the prayers that are included in that prayer book. This is what my book looks like, Celtic Daily Prayer, and this is the Northumbria community prayers. And I've used both volumes at different points in my practice. But this and one of the pieces of the daily prayer office is that in addition to morning, whatever time of day you're praying, there's a daily reflection. And those get repeated every month. So, they have 1 through 30 or whatever. And so whatever the day of the month is, you read the reflection for that day. And it's really interesting because you end up, you become very familiar with these things. It's like any of the repeated lines from a daily ritual of prayer that you say, the sort of the repetitive prayers. I find they sometimes hit you in a different way on a different day and then sort of soak in and become part of you the more you have repeated them and reflected upon them. Anyway, that's where it came from, just so you know, and if you're interested. But the reading that came to my mind today is interesting. And I think it probably popped up because because we're in a time of some transitions. Um, for the United Methodists, this is always a time when appointments are being made. Those of you who are not United Methodist may not know what that's about. Our bishop appoints us to the places that we serve, and the appointment cycle usually is that the new appointments begin on July 1st. So between January and June, you just never know. If you're going to get a call, or if if you serve with other people, if they're gonna be moved. So a lot of my colleagues are going to be in transition to new ministries, and we're also in transition in terms of COVID. Really having to much more intentionally think about all of the various pieces of transitioning back into some of the activity that we engaged before the isolation and quarantine. So that's transition. I think that may be why this came to mind. And also, I continue, as I've mentioned over the last number of weeks, I continue to have a sense of a lot of folks in deep discernment about the direction of their lives. And that some of that's been brought on by COVID, some of it just by life. And we're also in the midst of graduation season, which of course for all of our students at any level is a time of transition and sort of stepping into a new season. So it's that time, spring, things are busting out, it's transitional time. So maybe that's why it came to mind. And I'm sure God also has something in there for me, which I'll continue to ponder. But here's what the reading is, and then we can continue to think about it, maybe. The author of this piece, by the way, each one of the meditations, that's what they call them, meditations, not reflections, meditations. So this one, each one of them is by a different author, and they're just curated by the community from readings and quotes and things that have been meaningful in the community over the years. And so this one is written by George MacDonald, and this is what it says. What God may hereafter require of you, you must not give yourself the least trouble about. Everything God gives you to do, you must do as well as ever you can. That is the best possible preparation for what God may want you to do next. If people would but do what they have to do, they would always find themselves ready for what came next. Everything God gives you to do, you must do as well as ever you can. That is the best possible preparation for what God may want you to do next. So this is what came into my mind today. And I think I wonder how that strikes you, what you hear in it. It's a fairly simple message, but I think something that we often may forget, which is that you've heard me say, if you've been tuning into these ponderings over the last year, you've heard me say time and again that God is always at work, not just out there in the world, but in us, like in our lives, in our spirit, in our body, in us, that God is at work. And part of what that then means is that whatever you're doing, as George MacDonald has said, whatever you're doing, God is in there with you and will use whatever you're doing to prepare you for what you will do next. I think a lot of times we think, we try to force things, or we think, well, what should I be doing to figure out or to be ready? How am I going to be ready for what comes next? And especially if I don't know exactly what's going to come next, what should I be doing right now? And I think a lot of times it's like, what should I do? What should I be doing? What should we be doing? And I think there's something here for us because, a lot of us are doers. I think there is something here for us to remember that whatever you're doing, is exactly what you need to do right now. And when it's time for you to move into something else, you'll be able to move into that thing, and God will have been preparing you for the next thing. Um, the more we bring ourselves, I guess part of what I hear in this is the more we bring ourselves fully and do the best we can, which is part of what I heard in that. We do the best we can with whatever it is we have to do. Then that will be the preparation for what comes next. Um, I remember it made me think about when Anthony and I first moved to Washington, D.C. It was for Anthony to begin his PhD program at Catholic University. And I was looking for work and was not yet ordained. I was in the process. That's a long story. But the bottom line is I ended up getting a temp job. I can type quickly. And I went to the temp agency and got a job working first the front desk in like reception desk, answering the phones and all that stuff for the National Association of Real Estate Investment Trusts. And within, I can't remember how long I had been there, they were sort of in a reorganization mode at the time. And there was a new vice president for communications named Laura Armstrong. Wonder where Laura is now. I need to look her up. But Laura decided that, and she decided she wanted me to work for her in her department. And I said, well, I'm not going to be here forever, And she said, I understand. But she got me hired as the assistant for communications. And so I was the admin support for it was a small association, for the communications department for this national association. And I remember Laura saying to me, she said, you never know how this work is going to prepare you for whatever you do next. She said, I know she used to laugh because I decorated my cube with all of my like religious paraphernalia. She came in and she said, I never know if I should genuflect or what when I walk in your cubicle. She was funny. But she said, I know you're going to go do other stuff, but you're not going to stay in this work. She said, but you never know how this work will serve you in the future. You just never know where your life might go. And as I was thinking about this today, I thought that really has been true. I mean, I taught myself various computer programs in that job that I have been able to utilize ever since. I had the invaluable experience of knowing what it's like to get on a bus and then on the metro and then go into an office building and work in a cubicle and be in an office, in that kind of office environment, which without having this experience, I wouldn't have known. It gave me a whole sort of vision into what so many people's lives are. It has served me. It has prepared me in so many ways. And I ended up being there, I guess I was on staff at that organization for about a year. I don't really remember, but I learned a lot. I never would have chosen it, but I do tend to be the kind of person that, if I'm given a job to do, this is my dad's work ethic showing up. It's like, if you're given a job to do, you do it right the first time. So I do tend to kind of show up and try to do the best I can. And I learned a lot. I just had a flashback. Like, I remember the CEO of the organization, or whatever his title was, right when I was brand new, I was supposed to fax some stuff to somebody for a meeting, and I put the stuff in the fax machine and I sent it. Well, he comes back around to me and he said, somebody didn't get it. Did you double check to make sure that they got that the fax went through? I said, no. Well, he just lit into me and I was like, oh, I've got to like call to follow up to make sure I just thought I was supposed to fax it and just trust that it was going to happen. He's like, nope. Anyway, it was like all of these little things. I was like, oh, just figuring out how life works in that setting. All good learning. And as I think about, like right now, there's so many questions about transitioning in pandemic times. It really is uncharted territory in many ways, but it's not like we've never done hard things before and haven't had all the, things can change at any time. I mean, and regardless of whether there's COVID-19 in the mix. So we always have to be ready to do a new thing if we need to do a new thing. The best laid plans and all that stuff. But I think the thing that I want to encourage all of us, regardless of whether you're in the midst of a transition in your life, other than, we all are in a way because of COVID, but is to just remember, like, there's not just one, there's not something we need to go figure out what to do. Yes, we have to come up with plans. We're going to work together. We're going to figure out next steps. But in our lives, I think God is always at work, giving us opportunities to learn, to experience things. And sometimes maybe what we learn is that we need to move into something new. But that where you've been is preparing you for what that new thing is, or has been preparing you to know what that new thing is, preparing you to do it after you figure out what it is. I mean, the big message here, honestly, I think most of the messages of our faith are messages about trust. To trust that God is at work in you and in your life, and that even if you're in a place where you're like, I just cannot stand what I'm having to do right now, is to listen to that, to continue to do what you're doing and trust that you're being given something that you can use in the future, even as you discern perhaps a shift. And, a lot of times young adults will come to me over the years in ministry. They'll come to me and they're just like, I've got to make a decision. I've got to make the right decision. What's the decision God wants me to make? I'm like, well, I think the pressure of the only one right decision is paralyzing. And so for all of us who are in discernment and decision and transition, it's about listening in prayer. It's about listening to your life, to your conscience, to your gut, and then taking a step and trusting that God will be with you in it, will give you what you need, and will then guide you if it's a path that's really not perhaps the one that's going to be the one to stay on. You can always turn around or go a different direction. So it's about trusting God in the midst of all of it, and trusting that God's going to give you what you need for the next thing, whatever that may be. Sometimes we may only recognize that fully in the looking back. I think that's what was on my mind. That's what God gave me. I'm still sort of working it through. But for some reason it bubbled up. So I try to practice what I preach and trust that God is in it. So I thought I would bring it to you. Maybe it'll be useful in some kind of way. If not, it sure is lovely to get to sit here and chat with you a minute. I hope y'all are taking good care of yourselves and being safe in all the places that you're going. I trust you're going some places at this point. And if you are members connected to Foundry, we are going to be making having some intentional conversation this week about some of our targets for the coming months in terms of our transition into hybrid community, both sort of beginning a phased in re-engagement in person to come alongside our pretty robust online community that we've developed over this last year plus. So look for keep yourselves open to receive information coming out. I hope relatively soon about that. I know we're all anxious to kind of have a sense of what's on the horizon. I think you can still sign up for Pentecost boxes. The registration is available on the website. Brian may have it. If he's got it handy, maybe he can let you know. Pentecost boxes help with spiritual practices throughout the season of Pentecost, help us stay engaged in community together. So sign up for that. You can pick them up this coming weekend. I think that's my only announcement. Oh, you'll also get to meet Kaylin Rutledge, our new Director of Digital Engagement, is going to be present with us in worship on Sunday. So I hope you'll join us and get to hear from her in person. Yep, I think that's it. Let's pray. Loving God, we give you thanks for your presence with us all along the way and for using even perhaps what may feel like mundane moments to prepare us for what comes next. I pray that you would open doors and windows and opportunities for persons who are seeking their own path forward, and that you would be with all of us who are seeking to navigate and make wise decisions for transitions in our lives and communities. We pray all of these things, asking your Spirit and grace to help us trust you more and more. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, beloveds, may the peace of God be with you, and may you know in the very core of your being the liberating power of God's love for you. I'll see you next time.